Hello, everybody, and welcome back for the second segment of the June 23rd Trips and Traps. Andy Serling and Eric Donovan.
3 more races to bring you, and the first race we're going to show you, kind of a atypical race from what we usually show here on Trips and Traps.
Yeah, they're not all about horses getting bad trips, and we thought this was an interesting race because this was a race featuring Flawless, a Bill Mott horse who was extraordinarily impressive, breaking her maiden first time out. She's on the outside in the dark silks, and also a horse named Bahama Bound for Barclay Tagg, and they're a tale of two different horses. You know, Flawless got an 87 or 89 buyer, maybe winning her debut and winning it by 11 lengths. Coming back, she was 2-5 in this race. She ends up losing to Bahama Bound, a horse that made her second start in a $50,000 maiden claimer. And your first inclination when you watch it was, gee, Flawless didn't run that well. After thinking about it and seeing the speed figures and knowing the time of this race, I think Flawless ran very well. I just think Bahama Bound's a vastly improved horse.
I agree with you. And I think another thing, too, that struck me at first, I said, you know, what's Flawless doing back where she is now? Because first time out, she was up on the front end. And, you know, not to say that she ran super fast early fractions, but she showed more speed. And I'm thinking, well, you know, this is just kind of a ho-hum ride on a favorite that you think you're riding the best horse, just put her wherever you want in the race and you think she's going to win. But, you know, you pointed out to me that they're probably trying to rate her, give her a little bit more of an education here. So, you know, two things that struck me. First, I thought maybe Flawless just wasn't that good. Second, I thought maybe the ride wasn't that good. But after watching the race over again, you know, I see what was going on here, and I think that Bahama Bound, like you said, is just a vastly improved horse. And just watch how far these two horses finish in front of everyone else.
Right. This was a fast race, and it's clearly a situation that Flawless, she's not going to be wiring fields in stake races where they would like to end up with her and where she very well may end up, races even like the Test at Saratoga. She's going to have to learn to rate and sit behind horses, so that's what they're trying to do with her. I didn't love that she was taken over the rail so much here, but even at this point it looks like she's going to hold on. Bahama Bound ends up grinding her down. The winner got about a 95 buyer fig or 94 buyer fig for the race, and Flawless got a 93. She improved a few points from her first start. I think she ran perfectly well. It's disappointing that maybe she didn't win, but ultimately it's about how they run. If Flawless goes on and has a good career and wins a stake race, nobody's going to say, yeah, but she didn't win that second start. Bill Mott's a very, very good trainer. He knows what he's doing, and he's trying to build this horse's career. Flawless, to me, lost nothing in defeat. Bahama Bound gained a lot. She has just really improved, and Barclay Tagg's done a great job with her. Yeah,
ran for $50,000 down at Gulfstream Park over the winter, and then stepped up and ran well in some starter allowances here, but has clearly stepped up her game once again.
Yeah, she's very good, and I'm looking forward to both these fillies because there are some nice 3-year-old fillies around, but I'll tell you something. This race compared very favorably to the Acorn, which had a much different dynamic, but both of these horses are horses that are going to belong in some tougher races, and I won't be surprised to see them competitive.
We'll move on to our second race on the segment here. We'll go back to the turf. This is Turf Sprint, one of our old friends, Good and Acceptable, making the program again.
Yeah, well, Good Acceptable belongs in the program. Good Acceptable is the number 3 in this race who breaks towards the inside. There's Good and Acceptable. Right outside in those yellow silks is the favorite here, Redefined. And poor Redefined at 9 years old, he never gets clear in this race. He doesn't have a great trip. I think he's lost a step. Good and Acceptable was one of 3 horses that should have been a speed. One of them went to the front, another one grabbed, and boy, did Good and Acceptable really grab here. And you can watch it, we'll show you, you watch. Good and Acceptable has been a speed horse his whole career. Here's the rider, Jermaine Bridgmohan, in full throttle. This was one race after sending a 150-to-1 shot into a speed duel and compromising the chance to Fiddler's Chaparrito. That was the race before. I don't know what he's doing, Good Acceptable. Good Acceptable seems to keep finding himself in spots just a little bit too tough for him, but he's a lot better than he looks on paper.
He's a lot better than this. This ride is just insane. I mean, Good and Acceptable should be sitting 3rd or 4th, you know, down on the inside, kind of, you know, where is this Redefined right there, right where Redefined is. Should have been in that spot right there, and then, you know, you're going to see through the stretch here, trying to come through on the inside. I'm not saying that Good and Acceptable never had room, but, you know, just kind of tough to ride, especially, you know, when you got an experienced type of rider, low percentage type of rider here on the circuit, trying to ride this horse through traffic down on the inside, and just nothing's going to work out well for Good and Acceptable here. And this has kind of been the rule to Good and Acceptable, is that just the trainer just puts on jockeys that are just a cut below the best, and, you know, I just can't figure out why you wouldn't want to have a top jock ride this horse, because he's a talented horse.
He is a good enough horse that he should be able to attract a better rider. Sometimes it's hard for a low-profile trainer to get a top rider. This horse deserves a better rider, and he's shown it. And you know, it's one thing when you have a strong pace to take the horse back, but it is the rider's responsibility to be aware of the pace. And yeah, there were 3 speeds signed on. This, for considering the horses, was a very, very slow slow pace, and that's why Ezzy at 15-1 was able to hold on. Strong Impact finished second. His rider, John Velasquez, rightly thought the pace would be stronger, so rated him more maybe than he would have had he known, and he ended up not being able to get by Ezzy, had the advantage. And one of the reasons he had the advantage was because Good and Acceptable was taken back so much, and he still was running on a bit at the end. And as you said to me earlier, it showed that perhaps he can rate a little bit, but he needs to be in the game more. Can he beat horses caliber? Maybe not, but he's okay, this horse. The right spot, he's going to win a race.
Absolutely, and we'll see what happens with him. We get another few weeks of racing here at Belmont, and then some turf sprints up at Saratoga as well. One more race to show you. We'll go to the 19th. This is race number 6, and we're going to take a look at the SHREWD 1 and COCALERO. A very nice allowance race here.
Yeah, this was a much talked about Not-1 allowance race, and I think even though Aconite, was a household name and even ran the Preakness, ends up winning the race. The horse that ran extremely well is SHREWD 1, who's back there in last. Now, first of all, I don't know, I was surprised he was back in last. He has more speed than that, but that's all right. The problem was it was kind of a tepid pace, but he's back in last. And you look with the separation at this point, 7 lengths of separation from first to last easily. And suddenly, and you'll watch this, he makes this big, wide middle move. And he's making a big, wide middle move. And some pretty darn good horses.
Very good horses in this race. I mean, Safety Check, a horse that finished last. I was pretty high on in this race going in. COCALERO came off a nice looking maiden win as well. Some decent horses from Nexito also in this race in addition to Aconite. So this is a tough spot, and we'll talk a little bit more about this horse's appearance in this spot, because the Mike Lee at 7 furlongs run the next day, which is a race that SHREWD 1 would have been very tough in, as it turns out.
He would have been very tough in there, and that's taking nothing away from the winner, Friend or Foe, who is a seriously good horse, as really are the second and third finishers in that race. But considering the performance that is put in by SHREWD 1, because first of all, he made that move up. Okay, now he's right on the pace at this point. Drops off a little bit, but this was a pace that ended up collapsing. I don't care how slow it was. Safety Check was on the lead. It was 3-1, ends up last. COCALERO, he didn't show up at all today. He's out in the middle of the racetrack. Something must have happened to him. But SHREWD 1 keeps on running.
SHREWD 1 does keep on running. I like the fact that he was able to kind of settle into that spot right behind the leader, so it kind of shows that he's being very professional. But you're right about where he was put into the race and how the pace collapsed here. And then, of course, the race really kind of just plays into Aconite's favor the way the whole thing developed here. And I'm not saying, like as you said, I'm not saying that the pace was too fast in here where the closer necessarily had to win. But the way the dynamics of the race were run, it was Aconite's race to lose.
It really was. And SHREWD 1 normally has a little more speed. If he had been closer early, you feel like he could have been 4 lengths closer and wouldn't have had to make that middle move and wouldn't have expended that energy, and he would have been in the same spot. Would he have beaten Aconite? I don't know. He'll probably show up in the New York Derby at Finger Lakes the next time he runs. I got to tell you something. There better be some serious racehorse that we don't really know about that wants a mile and a 16th in there for this horse to lose. He's a very good horse. He can win this race. He can win the Albany. SHREWD 1, just another good New York bred. Very good New York bred.
A very good crop of 3-year-old New York breds for sure. Well, that'll do it for us here on this episode of Trips and Traps. Once again, we love to get your viewer comments, trips and traps at NYRAinc.com, the email.